order. I just want to note for the record that this evening we have committee member Chris LaValle joining us on Zoom, and the rest of the committee is here in person. I want to thank everyone that submitted their worksheet to me. That's a great help. Really shows, although there's always varied opinions, it shows, we usually have a consensus on several items. There's a few things I just wanted to mention before we get started, and that's, so I've passed out a worksheet to you, and so all of the projects are listed in the funded column that received 4 or more votes from members. You'll also see that there are a few items that are boxed in, and I did that just so you could see the difference. Those are projects that received 3 or more votes from committee members. So one thing that we could do, if the committee is agreeable to this, is Dr. Lang is assisting me tonight with the Excel worksheet that everyone can see. If the committee is amenable to this, we can add those items in that are boxed in that are on the worksheet that you have in front of you this evening. We'll have a discussion, and doesn't mean that they're automatically going to be funded, but if people are amenable to that, that will give us all of the projects that received at least 3 votes, if you want to look at it that way. And does everyone feel that that's...
That seems reasonable.
Okay. All right, so Dr. Lane will add those in. And while he's doing that, I wanted to mention a couple of notes. So one of the things that we looked at is there are 2, as everyone knows, there's 2 very large roof projects on the list. It's Project 31, which is the South Rose School roof for $1.2 million. And then Project number 40, which is the McCarthy School partial roof replacement. And given the large cost of those, and there's another reason too, my recommendation would be that we fund these outside the capital plan. I'll explain a couple of reasons for that. So as we heard at the last meeting, the South Rose School Public Works Director Clancy explained that roof is eligible or possibly for MSBA reimbursement. It meets the criteria with the age of the shingles and that or the roofing material. So it makes sense that the Public Works would work with school administration together and apply for as that would be an MSBA project. And because that process takes some time, it makes sense that once we're invited to submit an application under the accelerated repair program, we would then come back at a future town meeting to seek funding, a borrowing authorization to do that. So that's the reason for that one. And then the McCarthy roof, given the size of that project and the fact it would be at least a 2-year project, as you saw in the 5-year plan. This is really only phase 1, and there's another phase 2 to come the following year. And given the timing of the vote at town meeting on that, in talking between Public Works Director Clancy, Dr. Lang, it seems to make sense that one of the things that we could do is, she explained that it may make sense to try to design the whole project initially and develop a plan, and that would cost, she thinks she would need about $250,000 to do that. And then what we would do is come back and fund that at a later time. So that would help us by taking that out of the capital plan for now, but knowing that we're coming back doesn't mean that we're not going to do it or we're just deferring it or kicking the can down the road, but it helps us with the timing of that. So that would be my recommendation for those 2 projects after talking with, Public Works Director Clancy and Dr. Lang and others.
And how would that $250,000 for the design work be funded outside of the?
The $250,000 I would recommend we include it in tonight's plan if the committee votes to do that. And so.
Can it wait a year? I mean,
it's really my understanding is the roof has some leaks now, and given what she said, the age.
Right. I guess one of the things that we were looking at was, from a timing perspective, there were 2 major sections of the McCarthy roof to be done. One was a big number this year, and then there's another big piece of the school next year. that even if it got recommended in full to be done in the next cycle, and the money was awarded in April, there would never be enough time to turn around a bid and get a contract awarded to have the work be done over the summer, where we'd have to do that on that particular roof. So you're talking at the earliest, the summer of '25. It couldn't happen during the summer of '24. So if we actually had a firm come in and do the evaluation, put all the bid specs together, do like a more formal cost estimate, and we knew what both sections were going to cost, we potentially could look at, like, say, next fall's town meeting, coming back if we ever had some, say, like leftover, like one-time funding type things, also potentially incorporate that into the fiscal '25 request, because it'd be more likely you could look at both pieces together and actually have a bigger project, whether it's funded as capital or is funded as an aside, to get the work done during the summer of '25, because it just isn't lining up that it would get done during the summer of '24. So that was the only thought process on that. The South Row roof one, again, is just another big number. It could never get done during the coming summer. And where it potentially is MSBA eligible, you'd be looking at about a 50% reimbursement for that roof. I think it's worth at least trying to apply to the MSBA and seeing if we could get any legs on that. The positive one on that one also is the window opens up right after January 1st, and your applications have to go in by March 1st. So I could work with Christine to make sure we get an application in. It's a very quick time turnaround, so they actually come out during the spring, early summer. They make their assessment, they rank all the projects that came in, and then they do their awards at either the September or October MSBA meeting, so you know you have your funding done at that point. And then also, what they want you to do is either the project during the summer of '25 or the summer of '26. They don't want it to go more than 2 years. But that also, we'd have a much firmer number. You're potentially looking at getting half back. So I do think that that makes sense on the South Row roof. The South Row roof was the only one that's potentially eligible, just based on age.
And what would the 250 go for, 250,000?
You'd be, oh, do you want me to talk? Oh,
Sure.
They would need to hire basically like a firm, like an architectural firm, to do like the schematics on the roof, put the whole package together for bidding, cost estimating, so that when it is awarded, you kind of have the back end of the bid documents already prepared. You just have to put the town's front end on it, and you can go right out to bid. So it would be to basically do all the legwork, so that you're not, getting it awarded, and then, because that can take, say, 6 months' time. You'd get all of that done, and then be ready to actually go out to bid as soon as the project got funded. Because even like at this point, if a project got funded in April, then you're actually going to try to procure the architectural services, getting them on board. You're not really getting that done until, you probably wouldn't be ready to bid until the fall anyway.
Was the 250 in the 1,000,002 that was the
Yes.
line item here?
Yes.
Yes, you would have had those services. That's a piece of it, because you're always going to have to hire the firm to put the package together. So basically, you'd be fronting that piece of the work to get the seed money in, to get that done, because that doesn't impact the construction, right? So you'd have that at least all ready to go. You'd probably actually have a firmer number when you actually formally went for the bigger package, and then you'd be able to go out to bid. But it's inclusive. It's not like an extra.
Because
Again, the roof we can wait that long?
If there were something that arose, we would do interim repairs, and that investigation.
That's what we've been doing now, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we would do now. An investigation, doing those design work, would come up there. If we saw there was any kind of problems or sub-base at work, it would be done with that money.
And again, we've just been kind of like patching as we go. The roof isn't going to last forever. Remedial repairs have been done. There's just little seams that'll get water, and, you're just having a hard time kind of tracking them into the building. This particular area that was in year one is over the gymnasium and the locker rooms. It's not that you like that, but it's not over, say, classroom space or anything like that. And realistically, time-wise, it's not going to get done next summer anyway, by the time you went out to bid. So I don't think it hurts to at least get all the documents ready to go, have a firmer number, and then also it doesn't kind of tie up extra funding for things that actually could potentially get done during the summer of '24.
Because
I think that makes sense to me.
Is the 250 cover both roofs, the design for both roofs, or just the McCarthy?
No, just McCarthy.
McCarthy.
Right, and the 250 was basically just the first piece of the roof. I think, we could potentially stretch that, because there is some economy in having one firm come in, take a look at both roofs at the same time. Even if you're putting the package together, you'd love it to be consistent, because you really don't want to be working with two different firms, two different roof sections, they're getting done a year apart. You've got warranty issues and all types of things. So if you actually had one firm putting the whole thing together, whether it got bid at the same time or it was ready and got bid a year later, at least all that pre-work is being done. But that's only to McCarthy roof. The number that was carried for South Row would be included in the MSBA application, and that work would start after we figured out if the SBA was going to go forward or not.
And we thought that makes sense because when you think about it, we often say April town meeting, but in reality, with the town meeting starts very late in April, as we all know, due to with the language in the charter. So you're basically, by the time town meeting concludes, even if it's only 1 or 2 sessions, you're at May. So then you only have a very short time window before it's,
So my last
yeah.
question is, if we do what you just recommended, would that then be something we would deal with in next year's capital plan? Or is this something you're planning on bringing to town meeting as an article?
My thought is just to talk, I think we need to bring it as a supplemental or extraordinary capital project, because even next year, you're going to have a very long list of projects, and there'll be new roofs. And if you, just looking at Director Clancy's 5-year plan, I think you'll have a very large list next year. So I think that would, again, it would take up a very big piece.
Yeah, I mean, I think we probably look at doing fall town meeting, quite frankly, because, again, if we want to seek the 50% reimbursement for the South Row School roof,
I understand.
if we have that answer by, we apply in the spring, we have the answer by September, we can get it on the warrant for fall town meeting.
Because it won't be eligible, right, if
Because it won't be, you don't get eligible for anything you expend before you get the grant award. And then same thing for South Row, for McCarthy, we're going to do the design work, so we're not deferring anything, but we would then probably come back, once that work is done, hopefully by fall town meeting, and then seek the money then, and then the work would take place in summer of 25, so yes, basically you're talking fall town meeting.
As an article?
As an article, yeah. Much like we did for the McCarthy kitchen, the high school kitchen, the other items that we have, it'd be a separate article.
John, on on borrowing the 250, is there any, because it's just for an assessment?
For design.
Is that fine? Like, is that something you can borrow for? Because it's not really it's just an assessment. We're not really doing
Yeah,
the roof. It's.
We could do it over 5 years. My thought is you
Okay, so
use it.
I mean, they would allow that, right?
It would probably just be, I would do it over a shorter term, just so they wouldn't have any issues with that. More like 5-year, a 5-year term rather than,
It is, it is allowable under the bigger project, when the project gets funded.
I know it is,
don't
but
know
we're doing it.
Right.
We're doing it in 2 separate, so we're borrowing the 250 under capital, but then we're gonna do the $1 million
Right.
outside of the capital.
Right, but
We're gonna be
it'll
doing a
probably
capital
all-
project, but not in the capital.
But it would all be part of the same bond issuance, though, perhaps, depending on when we go to market.
You were looking
See on
at
the
it as a separate
timing.
vote. Yeah, right.
Yeah, just how we have to write it up when we send it to bond council for them to review it. It would be 2 separate borrowings.
yeah, they may ask me for description, but my recommendation on that, we would just go for a shorter term, and then we shouldn't have,
Just-
if we were gonna go long-term, they may give us some problems, so I wouldn't try to do that.
Now, if we added the 250 to this list, would we need to take stuff off the list to get under a number, or?
That's something, Dennis, I thought we'd go through and we can add it in and then see what we come up to for total, and then,
John, just so you know, before we do that, the numbers do tie out.
Okay,
So I
good.
added everything in.
Okay, excellent.
And it does 5332169.
okay.
All right, before I make any alterations.
Yeah, I'm keeping you honest too. Going through that
Good, all
matters.
right.
Good for you.
So partial roof, you want to put 250?
Somebody's
Yes.
fat finger or something.
All right, so that brings it to 55.
Okay, so, yep,
5582.
so that brings it to 5.58 million.
Yeah.
And then, so I thought I think it makes sense, we can, as a committee, we can go through, if you want, if the committee is fine with that, we can just work our way down, and if anybody has any suggestions, or, because where this list, again, these are all just projects that received 3 or more votes. What I did do, I wanted to explain on 2 projects is, some committee members recommended partial funding for 2 projects, and I'll explain what those are. So just to be fair, what I did is I put the lowest funding amount for each project that a committee member recommended. So for example, Project 3, the town clerk's digitization and records management project, one committee member recommended $60,000 for partial funding. So that's where that number came from. Then the other one is down, it's a school project, it's Project 30, the South Row ceiling tile replacement. The recommendations varied, but one committee member recommended $500,000. So we can talk about that more, but I just wanted you to know where the numbers came from on this sheet. And now all the other, to the best of my recollection, all the other projects, committee members recommended full funding for. So we can just start from the top if people are fine. The core switch project for a municipal IT for $100,000. Then we skipped over Project 2, that's deferred if people are amenable to that. We then reached the town clerk's project for digitization, records management. That is a partial funding amount shown of $60,000. I think we discussed the last meeting, or was it, no, afterwards? The
First meeting, yeah.
The first meeting, that was discussed at the first meeting. We move into,
I've got a question about
Sure.
that one. I'm looking back at my notes and I thought when Tricia talked about splitting it up, the software was, I think she estimated about 7,000 to 10,000.
Mhm.
And I think the rest of it was gonna be the digitization of the records. My concern with splitting it up as a 60,000 is that won't really complete any part of the project.
I think you would just pick up where you left off, where you finished in the future. I mean,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's how they would do it. They would just do so many records, and then when the funding exhausted, they'd just come back for more. But it wouldn't result in a loss of anything. It would just mean a delay, and as you move through it, as you can see, your project that's got years ahead of us for doing building, planning, and other departmental records. So you'll just go as far as the money allows, or if she obtains other grant monies or other things, then you just keep moving through.
Yeah, my notes say that it was something like $7,000
Yep.
for the file management system, and everything else is for the scanning.
Yep.
So I understood that she would just start working down the departments
Exactly. And go as
Right.
far as you go. Yep.
and go as far as you can.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, Chris. And then the next one is the senior center flooring for $205,000. There are actually 2. And the next project is the senior center elevator replacement. So I think we had a discussion at the first meeting about this, and then also Director Clancy had just discussed them as well from a facility standpoint. In my mind, the elevator is a higher priority in that facility, just because of, given the the aid, the folks that it serves. We can come back to discuss the flooring. I'm just, in talking with Christine, she did note that the photo that was taken with a lot of the damage seemed to be from the kitchen area or the food prep area. So that's something we want to come back and look at after we look at some of these other projects.
Yeah, my notes on this one also indicate that they said that it could be phased into 2 pieces, right? One for the great room and one for the hallway, right, the T.
My thought on the elevator part is, if the elevator goes down, it's catastrophic to the building. If the tile fails or there's a problem, they can do an interim step. It's not fatal to the building. So
Right.
of the 2 that got 3 votes, I think the elevator is a higher priority because of the downside risk.
Yep.
My only concern was, how often does that elevator get used? I mean, we got a lot of elevators
It's used,
here that-
it's used daily. It's used daily because you've got elders in the building going up and down.
When they
you know.
go down to,
Think of, because a lot of the activity rooms are in the basement, and that stairwell is not, it's not the best stairwell for whatever reason in that building. It's at the far end of the corridor if you go to the very end.
Yeah.
And then even the one coming in is the other problem. It's so steep, the one at the front door. So there's those. I think the elevator, my sense being over there when I've been is that the elevator is used regularly during the day. Because it's elders in the building. I mean, it's people with mobility issues. Okay.
And then the next two projects relate to Adams Library. So we have the roof replacement for $330,000 and the HVAC replacement for $450,000. Just so we can get the discussion going on that, my understanding was that, talking to Director Clancy, that there were no, although there were no current leaks in the roof at Adams, the consultant had determined that roof has a life of, she said, I believe about 0 to 1 years left, if I'm not mistaken. And the HVAC system, that I believe is that has serious issues, and as she described, it's basically at the end of its life. And this would be a 2-year or 2-phase project to replace that. So I just wanted to kick that out for discussion. I didn't see, it didn't receive a lot of votes, but then I didn't know if it was crowded out given the large-scale roof project. So some members, I thought, may have deferred that, thinking that, the roofs were, when you have two very large projects over $1 million, it can sometimes crowd out other ones.
David, you know the HVAC best in this whole room. What is your sense?
And actually, we had our monthly meeting with DPW earlier this week as well, and talked about both projects just in the course of things. Like you said, the roof, the survey says 0 to 1 year life. There aren't any known leaks right now. But clearly, from an age perspective, it's there. The HVAC system's got daily problems at this point, right? They're having to reset the units. So the impression that I got from Directors Clancy and Kimball is that they would prefer, if we don't have the funding for both projects, to fund the HVAC Phase 1 project for the roof project.
Is there a concern about replacing the HVAC system without a stable roof above it?
Good question.
You're not going to put the HVAC on the roof, right?
No, yeah.
No,
So
but if it's a potentially leaking roof and the HVAC is that close to the area where it's, the other concern I have with the HVAC is that there was some concern about how the new system would be designed. Where would it be put? How much would it really cost?
yeah,
And so I'm a little concerned about if we're approving that money and it gets designed, would it end up being a lot more in the long run?
Yeah, so Christine based this on the design work that was done in, I think it was 2014 by the town's consultant, C3. So the town hired a consultant.
Not the cost estimate, the design work.
Well, they did a cost estimate.
Right, but
as well,
we're not
right.
using the 2014 number.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So they did a design effort in 2013. They came up with a concept, call it a 30% design, as well as a cost estimate in 2014 dollars that Christine has then brought up to date to come up with the 2024 number. So everything was based on the concept that the consultant started that would then be completed. And as I understand, Christine's working on getting a consultant on board now to complete the design work.
So the design would be pretty stable then from that initial design. Okay.
But that 450 is only one half.
Is only
of-
one half.
One half of the total, so.
Yep.
So there's another 450 coming right behind it. So I don't want you to think we come back again saying, what, you told it was 450, now it's 900. It's, the total is 900, it's 450 for the first component of the change.
There are three large units that serve the library. The largest of those three units, which is about half of the capacity, is the one that's failing on a daily basis. The other two units, one of them is problematic. The other one, the smallest unit, seems to be stable.
Now, if we approve this half and the work gets done, how quickly do we have to approve that second one? Is it essentially an automatic approval for that second phase next year? Or if we have to, can we defer that?
It's the same age.
Right.
It's original to the building.
It's the same
renovation,
age, but
yeah.
the systems function
Right.
independently.
Right.
Okay. So it's an age function and not a function of the connection
Right.
Right.
and functionality. Okay.
Now, those are good questions, Chris, and part of that was, it sounded like that second phase, there were two pieces of that. I was gonna ask if, because again, because of the challenges we're up against, I didn't know if it was something that, I don't know why there was one section that seems to be operating than the other, but it's all one unit though?
No, there's three
three.
Okay.
units for the building, because you
Yes.
have the original building and then you have the addition.
Right.
And so this is funding the larger unit that.
Okay.
And then you'll come back and have to do the other one as
The
well.
other two.
The other
But the
two.
other one or other
Other
two?
The other
Okay,
two, but
so-
they're
so-
combined, the other two are combined are about the same amount.
So when I hear this, and my message to John was, Jay had sent us a great, priority list as a department for the schools. And I think we really defer to you folks, because you're there all day, every day,
Right.
knowing what the priority is. And I think we should consider flipping this and, do the HVAC this half, and then going into the next phase, if we can get away with doing one versus the other, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I'm glad you're here and you know that, so I think that's the adjustment we'll have to make, because every department knows their priorities more than we do.
And Christine Clancy's sort of
Right.
involved in all of them. right?
Exactly.
And I've lived through with David through a lot of these HVAC issues at that library. It is a present problem.
Right.
Whereas the roof is an expected problem, this is a present problem.
Right. And Christine said that, if a roof problem were to emerge, that it's likely to be something that, at least on a short-term basis, could be repaired. It's not gonna cause significant damage. I think similar to what Dr. Lang described, right, by completing the design work that Christine has underway now for the whole building, then we'll also have a better sense for how to address that second phase, and whether, the second phase is all one piece, or whether it's a second and third phase that are smaller, which might help us with the future year budgets.
I think it all makes sense, if that's where the priority is, but if we flip them, now we're adding another 120 to our list, just because of the difference between the two
We can
projects.
come back afterwards.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, I'm just trying to keep the running total going.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we do that?
So is that so what we'll do is, I'll just ask Dr. Lang so if you would please zero out the roof replacement for now,
Zero.
and then add in the 450 for the HVAC for the library.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next project on the list is the staff vehicle for the health. I will say that, having seen some photos of the underbody of the current vehicle from Public Works and from the health director, I think that's sorely needed. It has the current vehicle has extensive corrosion. And it's not repairable from what, they had mechanics look at it. And then we move into three projects related to the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, the auditorium renovation, the theater equipment, the exterior improvements, and then one project for the North Chelmsford Community Center or North Town Hall for $50,000. So those all appear that we would defer them. unless, if people want to discuss them, we can. They did not receive a total of 3 votes or more. Then we move into two police department projects, the air handler for the firearms range for 150, and then the parking lot light pole replacement for 60,000.
Everybody had the 150, John. So I think that we can probably just pass over that one real quick.
Yeah, that's, and then,
It's necessary to use it.
yeah, 3 or more voted for the light poles. I think as the chief, just thinking back to that first meeting, as he described, they'll go back to the, when the current police station was built, and they see, as he described, they're very corroded and need replacement, so I think that's a must-do. Next project, sorry,
John,
Chris.
just so you know, the reason why I put that one on, mine is because of the safety issue, in case they corrode so much that they fall, and also for the leaks that cause the camera equipment to fail and cost more in camera replacements.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. When he talked about that, that just doesn't make sense to try to keep operating with those. And the next project is the fire engine 5. It does have a big price tag, but I think we all that received many votes. That's $1,027,374. And then we move into public works projects, road improvements, sidewalk construction, mini excavator for $128,000, the roadside mower, $78,000, the roof replacement at 54 Richardson Road for $150,000, and the medium-duty truck that's used for road patching for $105,000. All of those received 4 or more votes. There was a electric vehicle, an SU, proposed for engineering that was deferred, that did not receive 3 or more votes. The dump truck replacement for the cemetery at a cost of $82,500, that received 4 or more votes. The next project, currently it's Public Works of Facilities is using a van, and Director Clancy talked about the need to replace that with a pickup so that it could be used for snow plowing. That received 3 votes or more, 3 votes for $85,000. Believe that was the one that was deferred last year, so I think, this is just my own personal thoughts, and I'm glad to hear from the committee, is, I don't think it would be wise to defer that any longer. One of those, one if not both of those vans is really near the end of its life.
That's the one that has 163,000.
Yes.
on it.
Yeah. The other one is 111,000.
Right.
The other van is bad too. Actually.
And then the next project after those two, 24 and 25, we come to 26 EV charging stations for $50,000. That looks like it will be deferred. The town office restrooms for $120,000. That did not receive enough votes. I did want to mention, just as someone that works in the building, that's something I think, not so much just, I'm giving you like an employee perspective, but the public does come in and use those. And I will say, a number of the fixtures and restrooms are very outdated, so hopefully that's something we can address in the future.
Historic.
And then we move into, then we move into the school facilities area. Yeah, there were some vintage fixtures there.
I felt like it was back in elementary school.
There's
You only
still
got so much money.
people were there in elementary school.
In and out, just wash your hands up. Wash your hands quickly.
So the first school project is actually the building that we're meeting in tonight, the administration roof replacement. There's actually a section of it for $105,000. I think that's a must-do. She described that cannot be repaired. And then the next one is the Westlands boiler replacement for $325,000. And then we come to the ceiling tile replacement at South Row. A person recommended $500,000, in talking with Director Clancy, I know it's roughly, she mentioned it was I know when she was asked about could the project be phased, I believe she said that it was roughly a 60-40 split. So my thought on that is if finances allow, we may want to consider bumping that up to possibly 600,000. It'll be just over 60%, but that would give us, that would give her closer
And that
to
would do the classroom portion,
Right.
right? I think the 60% was the classroom portion, the other percent was the hallways.
always.
And I guess the thought was that people would spend more time in the classroom than in the hallways in a given day, because they're seated there and they're spending more time. So that's probably more of a safety issue in the classrooms than the hallways.
Are
The
all,
ceiling tile can easily miss someone in the hallway if they're moving.
Yeah.
It's seated, there's no chance of getting hit.
The other kids run down the hall.
well, it could be just because it was a picture used, but I thought the picture was the hallway. So I don't know if that's because the hallways are worse. Maybe that's why we do the hallways
Right.
first, so that's, if we need to make a decision now, that's why I want the expertise of you or whoever's in the building would be able to get us a better opinion of that,
Right. I do agree with you. I think that picture was a hallway picture. Honestly, classrooms aren't that much better. That just happened to be the picture we kind of went with. This is a tough one, even as we kind of get into the school projects. It's something we can really do take a lot of time, kind of figuring out what the priorities are in the district and what's happened. We've had different groups come in and work with us. The South Row interior roof tile project it's just difficult because you just, I don't want to be the one to say, do the classrooms and then kid gets hit in the head walking down the hall or, vice versa the other way. It's one where, again, I know there's limited funding, and if we have to break the project up into a 2-year cycle, hopefully we would do it back to back. It wouldn't be that I want to fund piece now and then maybe 3 or 4 years down the line. We'd have to be knowing that the other piece is coming the following year. From a construction standpoint, I do think we could do one or the other, during one summer, and then come back the next summer and hopefully do the same. I'm sorry, do the other piece of it.
That's actually a good question, and in the circumstances that we're in,
Yeah.
maybe that works, because we definitely want to do them back to back, but then it's a matter of, John, make sure you note the projects accordingly, but also, I don't know if that puts us in a better position, if time's of the essence where a contractor would only have time to do one piece anyway over the summer, and then it could be considered as part of the bid as well, so we're locked in on a price, I don't know.
Could it all be done in one summer? The whole thing, the whole school?
I mean, technically.
You got a big enough
it's-
contractor, I
Well, it's
guess?
drop ceiling,
Drop
so,
ceiling, yeah,
I mean,
yeah, enough
the
people.
pieces, removing all the old, which I think would come down pretty easily, ironically. And then it's like putting up the drop ceiling, so, there is some rewiring with the lighting and things like that. I'm not opposed to trying to tackle it over 2 summers. I guess I'm just saying that, like, if we do a piece of it this summer, whichever it ends up being, just the group would have to know that the other piece is coming
I agree,
a year from now.
totally. I just don't know if it's a matter of, just understand the whole circumstances with labor availability.
Right.
Time constraints, if we were able to then procure, and get maybe a smaller contractor that
Right.
wouldn't be able to get it, but they would love to have that contract
no, you never
over
know
a
until
2-year
you
period,
do it.
lock it in on a price now, and then whatever the case may be, but it looks like we're gonna have a lot of projects potentially that are gonna be broken up like that.
I don't think we'd be able to bid and award a contract like for the 2 years because of just the way the prevailing wages work, and a contractor is unlikely to hold the price for like 2 years on something like this. I think if we did the piece of it for, 5 or 600,000, if we could get it up to 6, I'd be, more happy. But I mean, if we were able to do that, we'd also then at least have the specifications put together, because you'd have the same spec going out the second year. You would just be updating the rooms and things. I guess if we went into it and there was like an unknown that we were able to figure out in year 1, then we'd know how to correct the bid for year 2, and you just modify your spec. So, hopefully some efficiency you found doing that might cut down if there was any kind of loss in just the mobilization twice at the school. So I think, that's certainly workable. What I'd have to do is, just kind of go back and figure out logistically which would make more sense to try to do first as opposed to the other. I would want to talk to the school and also just get their input on that piece of it. I think, where it's a 60-40, it's not that big of a swing, one way or the other, but conceivably, I could see doing it over the 2 years, but we would just have to know the other pieces coming.
Do you think, would there be economies of saving significant if you did it in one as opposed to breaking it in two? In other words, if the cost is $960,000 to do it all at once, the whole school, is it like $1 million something to break, in other words, you lose?
Well, that's what we don't know until we're actually doing it, because you kind of worry about that anytime you split up a project.
Right.
That you are losing, like, a particular vendor going in, kind of mobilizing, and when they get the routine going, they can sometimes just kind of fly through the building. At the same time, though, when you do that, and just playing devil's advocate, sometimes you are limiting yourself to bigger contractors, because smaller contractors aren't going to have the staff or potentially the lead time to be able to go and do that. This is a project that I'd want to really get whatever piece we're going to do, if it's a piece of the project, done this coming summer. So we'd probably front load getting the spec put together and whatnot, so when this gets actually approved in April town meeting, we're immediately going out to bid in May. This is a project where I'm not concerned about materials, it's drop ceiling tiles and things like that, so it's not going to have a big lead time on product. It's more just going to having vendor availability and getting contractors that have, or don't already have all their summer projects lined up to be able to go and do this.
Unlike bigger construction projects like the roofs where you'd have cranes and other equipment that needs to be staged, ceiling tile work is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of mobilization effort, not a lot of specialty equipment that would need to be.
No, on a positive, it's a one-level building, it's a relatively older building. The only thing we are going to run into is, because there is a lot of surface-mounted, wiring, like your alarm systems, the fire alarm heads, like they're all mounted to the existing system. So you are going to have to be coordinating with the electrical and things like that to disconnect systems, reconnect systems. So there is that kind of coordination piece. But I agree with you. It's not like mobilization like doing a roof. It's a different kind of project.
What were you suggesting, bumping that to 6 to get the 60% of it?
That was my suggestion. Open up to,
Well, if we approve the whole thing, could we not get it done in 1 year?
Well, I think, I do think it's viable to get it done in 1 year. I just wouldn't know, again, we're just a little bit beholden to like the contractors, who's going to bid it. I think if we did it as a one project, you are going to get bigger contractors to do this as opposed to, the recommendation, maybe some smaller people might bid on it. But I'm also, again, I'm trying to be cognizant of just like the total dollars amount that are involved as well.
I just think it'll cost us more money if we split it.
Yeah.
I don't think we save money by doing that type of thing very often.
and if we're going to fund it at
I want
6.
to highlight it, John,
Okay.
come back to it at the end and see where we are. Yeah, let's see where we are at the
I'll
end.
put a yellow like I
Yeah, put a
did the
yellow
other
thing
one.
over it, and once we finish, and then circle back.
Okay, and we talked about Project 31, the South Row roof. And then the next 4 projects are related to the Parker School, so.
On a positive note, we don't need an elevator at South Row.
Don't need one in this building either.
So with Parker, one of the comments that I received was, again, we don't, not that we don't want to pay attention to Parker Middle School, but we know that, school administration has submitted a MSBA application, and so one member had discussed that with me, saying, maybe we look at these down the road. So those projects, a majority of members wanted to defer. We then move into down the list, so Project 36 is the McCarthy Middle School elevator replacement for 325. I think from what we heard, that's
It was on
very
everybody's,
old.
it was on everybody's list.
Yeah, it was on everyone's list. The next project is the McCarthy Tennis Courts for $430,500. That did not receive 3 or more votes. The next project, 38, is the McCarthy Front Entryway Improvement Project. That that received 4 or more votes, I think almost unanimously, yeah, everybody
Everybody got that
voted on that. And I think because of the security implications, that's what was driving people's decisions. The next one is the McCarthy adding some parking area in that turning lane for $150,000. That looks like it'll be deferred. We talked about the McCarthy roof replacement earlier, and the last project on the list, number 41, is the Chelmsford High School art classroom renovation for $475,000. I think from what we heard, the discussion, it's something that's needed, but unfortunately, a lot of the roofs and other higher priority items, sort of crowded that one out.
Just circling back to the tennis court thing, are we better off taking that off of capital and more of a community preservation or something? Because it's really not a school project per se, as much as a town project.
But it's school property.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Because I know the town is who
Yeah,
asked for
we're
it.
gonna remove, it'll be cleared.
Yeah, right.
Cleared, so then would it qualify for community preservation?
It actually came up at town meeting from the town
It
and
would
want to
be
do
similar
something
to
with
the
it.
turf fields, they would
Be like-
only pay for
Kimball is
only
in,
pay for.
Oh,
meeting room
okay,
on Zoom.
okay.
Sorry, what's,
What?
Oh, they said Leslie Kimball's in the Zoom room.
oh. You wanna lock her out?
At least she says.
Let's see if she's in the waiting room. Yeah.
You can't see her.
Just give me 1 second.
Sorry.
You're asking a lot of me here. So where is the waiting room?
In participants, I think,
participants, you
and
see
then
the
you
In
just,
participants?
Yeah, there's something's there.
Oh,
There she
Yeah,
is.
admit her. Yeah, there you go.
admit?
Yep, there you go. She should pop up. There she is. Okay. Thanks, David.
does she know the secret password?
Is it really her?
Is it really her? That's funny.
Okay.
I think she's in.
Okay, yeah, no,
Yeah,
it shows that she's in, yeah.
Okay, great. So we took our first pass of the list, so if we look at,
He was just talking about the tennis.
oh,
court.
I'm sorry.
I was asking Paul, just because it was something that came up, it wouldn't come up through the schools, it came up through town meeting, where people are like, we want to do,
Tennis
we want to have something for the town, pickleball or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think, 2 years ago, when it came up at town meeting, there was a question about, obviously, the tennis courts were not usable anymore.
Right.
What to do with that particular property. The police department at the time was looking for some additional parking to be incorporated into the site, because they do have the community room and they have limited parking during certain hours of the day. At town meeting, it kind of got pushed back to have a bigger conversation about the long-term use of it for the community as well as the school. Where it is on school property, the schools kind of took the lead on putting a little working group together to look at what the potential property could be used for. The school obviously had some ideas about, like, say, outdoor classroom space and things along those lines. The community group talked about, some kind of a mixed-use area that would incorporate some potential tennis, basketball. There's not a lot of basketball courts in town. Pickleball was another topic that had come up. Tennis hitting wall. So there were a lot of different options. And we then also took the lead on working with a kind of a landscape architect group to put some options together for us and some renderings. So we've been kind of taking the lead on it at this point, and really kind of coming up with more of a community-type use of it as opposed to just strictly a school use. I think I'd have a hard time ultimately ever recommending, like, to the school committee, like, if we had one-time funding or something, for us to take the lead on doing that. I'm just trying to be open with you, because really, it's not really designed right now to be really fully beneficial to the school. It's certainly going to be inclusive of the school, but it is a town-wide kind of recreation area. So if it stays this way under capital, then yes, I think it remains that way. If not, I mean, it is going to be cleared, and if it was something the school committee just on your own wanted to look at doing, I'd say, if it's not going to get funded this way, we'd look at it more as maybe just something that's really going to just benefit the school, as opposed to like a town-wide recreation type thing. But I don't know where to go with it if it really doesn't have legs or doesn't get support.
Yeah, because it wouldn't qualify for community preservation, because it would be seen as almost maintenance. You're replacing tennis courts with similar courts, and so that wouldn't qualify for community preservation.
Wasn't there something about private funding or something 3 years ago on this? I thought there was
Oh,
something.
there was a proposal a few years back, a fellow who wanted to build pickleball
Right,
junction, but then, when we called him on it and really tried, he basically disappeared real fast. And I don't think that, from us, I don't know if he ever went to Acton or another place, but he.
I don't know.
We basically were very receptive, and then it never moved, it never came to fruition. Anyway.
So with the request for the additional parking and the turnaround and all that, that was more toward the front and
Yeah.
Correct.
McCarthy, right? I mean, it sounds like there's a need in the area with parking anyway, so I'm wondering, and I know because of Barney and the interest of that one pickleball, that the interest of that and other tennis courts is higher, but if we don't have the funding, I don't know if it's something that needs to be considered for parking or something like that as well, or, because especially in the short term, if they're gonna be redoing Parker and moving everybody over to
Well, that was the
McCarthy.
original request. The original request
Yeah.
was to just remove what was there, open it up to allow for an access route, and that's when the town meeting pushed back at it and said, no, we'd like it to be a recreational asset. So I don't think we could go back to that at this point, but like I said, it's a viable project and a worthy project. We just can't take it on with everything else we've got,
Right.
and that's the problem. So I think so
well, I guess it gets deferred.
I think it gets to.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's sort of our first pass through the list.
So John, if you put the full amount in under the south row ceiling of the Jay, if you put the 958, I'm just trying to see what our ceiling is in terms of, you put the 958, 528. And then there was another one up top that you had, was that full amount?
I think
Not a yellow
I
one.
think I put it in.
The full amount, okay.
It was already in. It was the question about the
205,
flooring.
okay, so what does that bring us for a total?
Well, and that did the swap also, just so you know, of the library,
Okay,
the HVAC for the roof.
so what does that bring us at the bottom? Ooh,
6.1.
6.24 million. Oh, no, I'm sorry, after, 6.16 million.
It's 616.
Yeah.
That 900,000 really puts us over.
yeah.
What are we shooting for a target?
We were originally shooting around 5, but
Yeah.
after looking at it, we then, when I sent out the note, I said somewhere between around 5.5 million, I think is doable, or 5.4 million.
First number should be a 5.
Yeah.
Price is right. Go back up to the top.
Can we start at the top?
Yeah, go back up to the top with the, so the senior center flooring, I think was one,
Talked about doing partial project.
yeah, I say if you did
I
the
think
partial,
They prioritized the elevator, didn't they?
yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it'd have to be because
Yeah.
you lose the functionality of half the building. But I don't know what the flooring,
Well, we're gonna tear this thing down.
yeah.
Well, that's what we're starting to
I don't
do.
know what you would do with the flooring, 50,000, I don't know, 50,000? I don't, yeah.
Is it repaired?
The
or the
runner
whole
and
thing?
the stair, and the hallway as opposed to the big hall. I would think of the 200,000, looking at the square footage of the hall versus the square footage of the hallway, it can't be more than 25%.
No.
No way. So that's why I'm wondering if you made that 50,000 instead of 205, and then come
That
back.
would allow them to do
Yeah,
some
and then you can do
repairs.
some repairs and do the main hallway. So if you enter 50,000 in that yellow square, that probably.
I'll leave it yellow just so we're.
Yeah, no, exactly, yeah. So that brings us down below 6, right?
Yeah, I gotta go back down again.
I don't think so.
Does it bring us below 6? Ah,
$5,000.
It's just barely, right?
Now, when we talked about the fire engine paying up front, paying in the back, does that make any difference? Do we have to commit the million this year, even if we want to play later?
because the problem is you gotta sign a contract.
Yeah.
And part of this contract is you have to certify you have the money to buy the vehicle.
You have to have an appropriation.
So you can't buy it on, she has to certify that we have the appropriation made, and then the.
Yeah, the issue with that is in the.
Get that discount up front.
In the past,
And then
we've
you
had
gotta pay
to
for the chassis.
make prepayments.
You're almost making like, progress payments. Yeah, so,
Right, and I don't dispute that, but the question is when we're getting the truck. So that's why, if that's a 48, like, no, that was a 31
41
month
months?
Yeah.
project, so.
41 months.
So they want us to guarantee the funds now, but yet we're not gonna see it in 3 years.
Yeah,
That's what we do.
but if
That's the
you,
process.
right, but if you don't do it, you won't see it for 4 years.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Can we hold the money and earn interest on it instead of them, though? As long as we guarantee that we have it? I mean, seriously, I mean,
What we
back in
would,
3
what
years.
what we would probably do, and again, we're not financial experts, but normally, we try to borrow at the best rates. If the sense was that interest rates were gonna decline, we would probably defer on the borrowing, because you could then, let's say instead of borrowing it at 4%, because we borrow tax exempt, you could borrow it at 3.5% if you waited 6 months, if the market were to cool. Nobody expects rates to go much higher, right?
Right.
Barring what we're seeing out there, maybe, but,
I agree with you.
yeah, so I think
Right,
that,
no, but when
that's
you're talking
what
$1
we would do.
million,
Right,
you also say that's worth something to
Right.
set
So
aside.
we would- but that's how we would do it
Interest on We're not
mechanically.
gonna get a truck for 3 years.
We have to authorize the
You have to
borrowing.
authorize it, but you don't have to- you
have to
don't have to
actually
actually
physically
Right,
borrow
do
it.
the
and I understand that they need it in phases too,
Right,
but I
so
just
what
wanna
it
make
would be
sure.
is it would be authorized by the issued debt. And then what we would do is, we can borrow within the stabilization fund during the course of a fiscal year.
Oh, you can.
But we'll,
We can also do a short-term
do a
borrow.
short-term borrowing, but by the end of the fiscal year, you gotta
We have
do
to
the
pay it.
permanent, so that way it doesn't hit our free cash. Right. So, yeah, you have that liquidity during the period of July 1st to June 30th, as long as you balance out by June 30th. So that's how mechanically you would do it, but it doesn't save us the authorization
But
vote,
the
which is $1 million.
authorization still has to be there.
Right.
Again, only because we need to negotiate what we can afford. Now, like the Westlands boiler replacement, is that on its last leg, or is that just at the age where it could potentially last another year, Jay, or was that something that is like acting up now with repairing?
I'll be quite honest with you, I don't track the boilers in the school. That was kind of
No, I
I only
know.
get the calls when they're working. That was Christine really is the one.
Okay.
That does the boilers and the roofs and things like that. She's the one that tracks them. And she had that one on as a replacement. I honestly don't have the
thought I read-
specifics on it.
The
21
notes I
years
have
old.
say it's one of the top boiler requests, and she's very concerned about it surviving through next winter.
Yeah.
Right, 21 years
That's what she
old,
said.
parts not.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can't get
There
the
you
parts
go.
for them anymore.
That'd do it for me.
Jay, where it is Westlands, could the portion of that be paid from the, the childcare fund, since the building uses it for child, I'm thinking 100,000 or something. I'm just, thinking, because when the town closed Westlands, the reason we kept Westlands was for the childcare and the daycare purposes.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I always do look at anything Westlands related, as you know, because it's been talked about over the years, to see if they can kind of help on things like that. Usually I try to kind of help with like a rounding type thing if we're getting close. I always take a look, but I looked at the ratio of kids that are kind of in the ComEd program to the integrated preschool, which we have to fund, that's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And it's almost 80-20, so it's like only 20% really ComEd during the day there. So that would be about a $65,000 allocation. I couldn't get up to 100 on
Right,
it,
but
like
60 but
justification
65
purposes.
if it's
In the
65.
end, if there's some kind of a rounding thing that we need to do, we certainly could.
If we could bring the 325 down to 260. 260, right? Yeah. Now, that might help. I mean, we're scraping here.
Yeah. I mean, what I'd suggest doing is I would leave the project at the full value, but
Yeah.
down at the bottom.
Okay.
Add a
We
line.
would just, in the amount that we defer the borrowing, we'll add it there.
All right.
So just add a line.
Let me add
So-
it to that.
Yes, please, if you just add.
You know, in this whole process,
We're under 6.
we assume that these numbers are good.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to.
And of course, that troubles me a lot, in case nobody knew that.
I know, no, we know that, Dave. I remember from Fall Town meeting. So you're under 6.
The town doesn't have a purchasing agent, per se, a person who is strictly purchasing.
No. We have, most of the purchasing, like most of the activities in town go through DPW.
Okay.
And they
right.
have an experienced person down there, Joyce Cote, who does most of the purchasing and bid documents. Because think about it, very rare is there somebody in the town office building purchasing a magnitude. It's mostly public works. So yeah, I mean, her title is business manager, but she does most of the purchasing.
No, I felt good about that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I went through that in my
Yeah.
kind of figuring what they're doing. I really think she has a very good handle on things.
Yeah.
But nevertheless. I'm only saying.
No,
that
no, I know. I'm just-
We're assuming all these numbers are good.
Yeah.
Would we want to consider deferring the mower attachment and the mini excavator?
Which one? I didn't.
It is 18.
1819.
I was gonna say something about that too, in terms of the mini excavator. They said they don't have a backup, but then they said they do actually have, the stormwater has a mini excavator as well. So if they did need to get, if there was an emergency and they had to have it, they had something that they could fall back on at least. And that's 128,000, you know?
And lease if they have to.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they can lease if they have, right. Yeah, so I don't know if that's
We can
something.
also rent them if needed.
yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, let's zero.
All right, so let's take
zero
out the
out
128,000.
I'll highlight it just to remember,
Yep.
Michelle.
The same with the cemetery dump truck. Is there any
Well, Mike-
sharing they could have with
Mike,
One's in
DPW?
yeah, my concern on that, David, is in talking with David Boiler, when we heard his presentation, he said that that truck, he basically, for his, it's a smaller department, he has 2 dump trucks and 1 pickup. If one of his, and he said the dump truck that he's trying to replace is currently parked, so that only leaves him 1 dump truck with a dump body that can dump fill after a funeral service, or if he has to haul fill from his base of operations over to like an outlying cemetery like North Chelmsford, West Chelmsford. So he's very limited on what he has for vehicles.
And this one's replacing one
Great.
that's already out of service.
Yeah, the other thing, David, the DPW doesn't probably have extra because that patch truck is very similar type of vehicle. So, I mean, think about it. A patch truck is really a dump truck that they use for patch. So it's not like I don't think they have like unused vehicles during the day that they're not using. Jay, if you zero up and highlight the mower attachment, 78, the one that was right after that, number
Sorry,
19.
the number?
19. What you're just.
Oh, I'm
just there,
sorry.
Yeah. Let's see what that, gets us.
I'm gonna guess 5.7. Yeah, 5.7.
7.
I also had a question on the staff electric vehicle, the health one. I couldn't tell from my notes, is that replacing
Yes,
one?
yes,
It's, okay,
In really bad shape.
it's in tough shape.
okay.
Yeah, it's a,
Looks like we might be headed towards splitting the,
yeah, it's a 2011, they're replacing an older 2011 Ford Fusion.
What's
That's what's tough. You're looking at a Fusion and you're looking at 50,000 to replace that. Crazy.
Yeah, and if I remember, Christine said that the purchase may be eligible for some grants and incentives.
Because it'll be an electric vehicle, so they'll get a
Yeah.
rebate.
Which we're all paying for those anyway, so that's like monopoly money. But yeah,
But you still have to authorize the whole amount, right? And
Yeah,
Yeah, but then we get the rebate
and that's
after.
part of
you
the,
get the rebate.
What's the
the
number
bottom
now?
line.
What's the number now?
5.7.
5.7. 5.7 what?
5.73.
Recaptured funds.
Yeah,
5.734.
5.73 million.
Can we also look at the core switch upgrade?
Yes.
An IT guy on project number 1.
Yeah.
They need those.
Yeah,
If they fail, then
He did say that they do have switches.
I don't know. That's a security.
security,
issue.
too.
Also said you can't communicate with them anymore,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he said it was his top priority and it affected the cybersecurity.
Okay.
We'll go there.
Now, how about the DPW roof? I know it's the oldest roof and the worst roof, but is it just a roof over vehicles? You know, there's no people in there. The leaking is leaking on vehicles.
It's the DP.
Number 20, number 20.
Richardson Road, yeah.
As I said, they're storing vehicles there, but it's not like people aren't working in it. As long as, you know, I don't know.
There is a mechanics bay there, right?
There was, yeah, there was a little,
The
No, but that's
mechanics
not-
don't go
but,
there.
Is that the
but no, I still think it's a valid question.
Yeah,
the other
I
side.
mean,
The other side, that's the one where the telemedia is parked.
I didn't,
It's more where telemedia is.
Right,
It's over the.
that's where the telemedia equipment is parked.
But it's just
that's right.
protecting trucks and vehicles, not protecting people.
Right.
So if it's leaking, I guess if it's leaking, it's not leaking on people.
Yeah, telemedia keeps their equipment in
and
there.
can it be patched for a year, or can't we?
Or could we
I
do
thought she
just
said that was the
that?
worst roof in
Is that
town.
what she said?
Right, oh, it did
Yeah.
say that, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying, it's not a roof
Yeah,
like.
The question was, how old was the building? Is it worth it? And she said, yeah, it's still a viable building.
Right, it says the roof was 31 years old. That's what I had in my notes.
Yeah.
But again, it's basically a storage building, I
So if
guess.
we do nothing, it'll be 32.
A little bit wetter. I'm just trying to figure out.
I'm just saying.
You know, if we have to take money from something, you know.
Yeah, this is a tough drill.
Yeah, this
you
is-
know.
That's one where you, when you see the picture. you
Oh, I know, I
can
remember,
see-
yeah,
You're gonna leave it
I
at
can see why, but.
5.7?
Jay, what are we at now?
573.
That's net?
Net of
Net of the
the child
I
care.
threw the childcare money into.
Okay.
I did that as an offset.
Okay.
That's what
Yeah.
I selected.
I mean, 5.5 to 5.7 is 200,000, but I don't think materially it's gonna have a major impact on
No.
your debt service because you're gonna be borrowing these things over 10 and 15 years.
Yes.
So
Right.
200,000, I mean, you're talking 20,000 in debt service, I mean, it's not, right, I mean,
And we're not saying that any of these projects aren't valid,
I don't know.
right? That anything that we don't approve is just gonna get pushed into the next year, so.
Added to the next year's stuff.
Exactly, which is already troubling.
I think we've, yeah,
It was still right,
Already
at
carried
least
two
in the
points.
vicinity of
We're in
half
the
of what was asked of us.
target, and I think we've, I think it's doable.
I think we're done. The improved bond rating will save the difference in the interest.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll borrow at AAA ratings as opposed to double A, so we'll get a little bit of savings.
Maybe the interest rate.
But no, honestly, it
on
really-
the
it
fire
really-
truck
it
million,
really-
we could put that into pay for the interest on it.
Like I said, it's,
On the McCarthy roof, if that ever just went to
like, again, we're starting to see rates soften, so maybe that will help us honestly, because
Do they-
really, we're looking at a gross amount, but really what matters is when he plugs in the debt service number.
Even
Is that
last year,
just
we
the
got
lead
such a
money?
great
Yeah.
rate last year.
So,
even,
that'd be okay, but.
You know, she didn't give me a lot of
Ugh.
details, she just, that's the number I remember her saying.
All right.
You can't,
I
No, I
agree with
just-
you, I
like,
agree with you,
if
no.
you had free cash at the end of the year, you couldn't, could you use that in any way, expense it or a project?
No, no.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you could do two things. One is you could apply the free cash to reduce the levy, which reduces the interest cost, as you know. Or you could technically do an amended vote to pull one of the things out and fund it out of free cash. Yeah, I mean, so, but yeah.
So we have a little flexibility
Yeah,
there if we
you know,
have
yeah,
to.
but the problem is by the time we would do that, we may have already issued the debt.
Yeah, we
because-
already issued the
Well,
debt, because we don't
yeah.
get free cash until
So,
fall, so.
we'll see where we are and, but,
I'm just trying to be creative.
yeah.
It's a timing issue, that's the problem, it's a timing.
Yeah, I
You
don't see where else we go at this point.
Just a quick question for you, was your recollection that Christine recommended 250 for the McCarthy roof design, or was, we were just saying
Yeah.
she needed like 200, that would save 50, but you'd only be talking 50?
Right, I think she added money because she was unsure that if you opened up that roof, if you were gonna find some work, that she wanted to have some funds available to do.
To do the
There was
repairs.
some sub roof damage or other stuff, but I mean, yeah, I mean, could you bring it down? I guess you could, if you could bring it down to 2, I think. It's up to, but.
I just didn't know optically for you, if 5.6 as a number is better than 5.7 as a number. But I didn't know what that number was for.
Yeah, yeah. I think that was my understanding in speaking with her, was that she carried some money in there in case they found problems up there.
Yeah,
So, yeah, because you wouldn't be 250,000 to design, clearly
right,
not.
right.
Might be mine. It's mine.
They do, I mean, not like
Sorry.
flooring, but like they do have to kind of uncover what's there.
Yeah.
Even when they're putting the spec together to know
Right.
what to
And the
include.
problem, and what she thought,
Get
if they
this on
found
their
stuff,
plan.
she can then fix it. I mean, we could always go to the reserve fund if that was the issue, and then cut the 50, but,
Well, if everybody's,
yeah.
as I say, if everyone's satisfied with the plan, the number, if we want to entertain a motion to, the total of the projects is 5,883,402. And then it would be, the borrowing would be defrayed by the amount of 148,705, leaving a net amount of 5,734,697. And we can discuss more. I'm not trying to limit discussion, but if people are satisfied with it, I'd entertain a motion to approve the.
John, I have a quick
Yes.
question. Did I miss something? Because this says 83 of the recaptured funds, that says 148.
They added
Oh,
the 60K
yeah, I'm sorry,
from
the-
we're gonna take 60K from the
Community,
Wesley
from the-
community.
yeah.
and the
Oh, okay,
Wesleys.
all right, I'm sorry about that, yep,
Well, I didn't know where to put it, so I just put it there. We'll contribute that 20% that we can allocate.
okay,
Yeah, we'll make it a little clearer when we distribute it,
okay.
rather than,
Sorry I missed that.
no, it's all right.
No, we
Yeah,
just
I
didn't
could
want
just-
to reduce the project
When I
cost.
send it out to the committee, I'll
Just
show it on
split it.
2 lines, yep.
Could we just take 2 minutes, John, and go back up?
Oh,
to the
sure.
top and-
Yeah,
And
sure.
run down it,
I think that's a good idea.
just to make sure that we're,
Sure. So we have the course switch for 100,000, the town clerk's digitization project for 60,000, senior center flooring partially funded at 50,000, and just to be, the town clerk's is partially funded at 60,000, the senior center elevator for 325,000, the library HVAC system for 450,000, the health department staff vehicle for 50,000, the police air handler for the firearms range, 150,000, the police parking lot lighting replacement, 60,000, the fire engine 5 for 1,027,374, DPW sidewalks, 350,000, Public Works road improvements, 425,000. Then we skip down to Public Works roof replacement, 54 Richardson Road, 150,000. The Public Works patch truck, 105,000. The cemetery dump truck, 82,500. The facilities plumbing van to be replaced with a pickup, 85,000. School administration roof, 105,000. Westland's boilers, 325,000. South Row ceiling tiles fully funded, 958,528. Then McCarthy School elevator, 325,000. McCarthy front entryway improvements, 450,000. And then McCarthy partial roof replacement, 250,000. So those are all the projects that we talked about.
feels pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, they're all very high priority
Yeah.
projects.
You want a motion to approve?
Yeah, if I
the-
entertain a
which-
motion
Which
to-
number, the 5.8 or the 5.7?
Let's do the 5,883,402, because that's the true total of all the projects, just.
Make a motion to approve a total of $5,883,402 for the capital.
All right, Dennis, let's see, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Joe, and I'm gonna do a roll call vote because Chris is on Zoom, so I'll start with Chris. Chris Lavalley? Aye. Joe Tierney?
Yes.
Yes. David Braslow? Aye. David Goslin?
Yes, with no overruns.
Try our best. Dennis King?
Aye.
Aye. Darlene, oh, I'm sorry, Darlene's
You're
not.
non-voting.
And I vote aye. So that's unanimous. And then, and I'll just note for the record, the amount of funds to be recaptured and the childcare contribution total $148,705, leaving a net amount to be borrowed of $5,734,697. I don't see any visitors for public comments. We do not have any minutes at this time to approve. Seeing no public in the Zoom room that wishes to make comments, I don't think.
No one?
No? Okay. All right, with that, if anyone has anything that they want to bring up, please do. If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I just want to make a couple of notes on record, just things that we talked about, and again, Jay had given a good priority list from 1 through his 9. The only other suggestion that because of the challenges we're at, that the list is a little bit more specific, only because I was a little lost. He had 9, but it still said school. There were 14 line items that began with school. So I wanted it, in trying to, assess that, just threw me off a little bit, because I know DPW and Christine manages maybe the roofs. If it was a little bit sorted differently to make us, be able to calibrate better and decide better. But I would also say, if she, did her best way to list from 1, if she has 20 projects that she's really representing, go 1 through 20, only because that's gonna, allow us a better opportunity to decipher our feedback, but then also, like now, we were debating stuff with them not in the room, people, other stakeholders that weren't in the room, and that way we could defer to that list.
Yeah, no, I will ask for them in the future. It's one of the challenges is take the school improvements, for example. Some of the projects are more brought up by facilities such as the boilers, roofs, and then some are brought forward by school administration through the school committee. So it's like you have 2 different looks at things, even though it's all for the schools, but I will definitely ask her to.
Right. And again, like you said, because she was up there with the library, and it maybe it's like the library's 1 through 3, if it's 3, right? And because I think we're all here wanting to consider everybody in town.
Right.
Everybody's important. There are things that we wish we could have done the whole list. Right? And I just want to make sure we're trying to be as fair as possible across the board.
No, your comments well taken, Joe. The library's another good example too, not just to focus on the school buildings, but like, for example, so with the public libraries, we tried something new for all departments this year is anything related to facilities had to go through or be done in cooperation with, Christine and her staff, so that they're getting her input on it, so that you don't have the library or the senior center submitting a project without facilities input. But it can sometimes be a challenge because, for example, not picking on David or the library trustees might have a project in their mind that for Adams Library, it's high priority number 1, that's what they want, they would like to see done. When you talk to facilities, I'm not saying that's the case this year, they worked in cooperation. In past years, I've been doing this a long time, sometimes there's a disconnect between what the board that oversees that department wants and what facilities thinks is the highest priority, and sometimes that's where we get some of the disconnects sometimes, or the
Right,
problems.
and I guess it's the homework for everybody, like the library team, to talk to DPW, really as a group. What are the priorities? Because we live it, and they have to repair it, really come to us, because we really, at the end of the day, we're just here to try to steer it.
Yeah.
But they're the ones that have to live it, and we all have to collectively make the right decision. So that's all, it's just,
No,
and then
it's-
semantics is when I'm
Yep.
trying to get this done and get it to you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure, I'm like, I don't want to text you at 8:00.
No,
This has been the most difficult capital process
Yes.
I've ever gone through in the 17 times I've done this. And I know, David, you've been a few of these. This is the hardest one I think we've ever done.
Without a doubt.
Without a doubt. So I agree, Joe. It's going to get tougher getting forward.
Last year was a little
Yeah.
challenging, but I think
This
last
is-
year we saw this coming
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And
I think next year's gonna be worse.
Yeah, exactly, yeah,
Right.
Hopefully the year after that it will be better.
okay.
The other thing that we might want to consider is that, for future cycles, is now that the projects are getting bigger, right, that we set some threshold, $400,000 or $500,000. And for projects that bigger, that we ask in the request that they address whether the project can be phased and how, so that we have that information, explicitly when we get to this point of being challenged to try to fit everything in.
Good point.
Yeah, that's good. We'll add that in. Does anybody have any other comments or any? Just want to thank everybody for their participation. I know it was took a lot of time to try to come up with your list and your of recommendations this year. So thank you for that. Any other comments at all or? No? All right, if not, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion to join the third and final capital planning
Motion.
meeting of this year.
Motion by Joe, second by Dennis. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And Chris says aye on Zoom.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.